The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. This is Tony Shibiyama. I want to welcome you to the webinar. We have about half of the people that RSVP'd for this event, so hopefully they'll be joining us soon, but want to welcome everybody to our webinar. Just quickly, if you do have any questions, feel free to, on the side there, submit in your questions, and we'll try to answer those as we go along with the webinar. So today's topic is going to be managers are your best defense to liability and risk. Presenters today are myself, Tony, and also Ty Shibiyama from S&K. And the reason why we picked this topic was we tend to see a lot of liability, and when looking back at could this have been prevented, we tend to see that a lot of what could have been done or should have been done really should have been done maybe at the managerial level with our leaders, our department heads. But looking back even further, asking ourselves, did we provide them with information to be the best managers so we are consistent within our organization? So this really is a quick webinar to kind of give you what we're seeing in the workplace, what we're seeing as far as prevention, and also too some best practices as well too. So that is the goal of this meeting here. And just a quick little tagline for us. Most of you that are on the line here are our clients, and we'd love that you're here with our compliance events, and whether it be live or via webinar. But yes, we do insurance, workers' comp, property liability, and also benefits, but that's usually once a year. Our job is really to focus on protecting our clients from lawsuits, litigation, and compliance standards, and also focusing on your bottom line, and trying to be a broker that just does a little bit more than everyone else. So today we have two presenters, myself, also to Taizo, who is the Director of Safety and Wellness. We're really going to be giving you a snapshot of what we're seeing out there and some best practices. So what are we seeing? We are blessed to have a lot of clients and to work with a lot of different companies, and here are some of the things that we tend to see within the workplace. As we have an employee that goes out on stress workers' comp claim after his manager yells at him at work. Well, you know, working with the adjuster, talking to the attorney, and figuring out what happened. Why is there a stress claim? Why did they get legal representation? And we find out that, okay, well, we want to fight this claim. However, we find out that this person has never been written up. And when we look at return to work or modified duty, this manager tells us they don't want him back. But he's been there for over 10 years. Could this create a situation? Could this create a problem? Could we have a workers' comp retaliation, and are they under protected class now? So looking back at this particular person and the claim and what came out of the claim, we always tend to see what could have happened properly from a managerial standpoint, and really what is the liability now that we do not have any documentation and they're in a protected class. Another scenario that we're seeing, a manager wants to fire an employee after they return from maternity leave based on productivity. I am always surprised to see that when people go out on medical leave, how often this comes up. You may have 50% where somebody is doing somebody else's job and this person's on a protected medical leave and the manager does not want them back. This obviously creates some problems with HR, because in looking at their performance file, in looking at their personnel file, there's nothing in there that talks about lack of performance, productivity, missing deadlines. However, this person is on a protected leave. And also too, they do have a temp, and the temp is obviously going to be a better employee, doing a better job, doing things on time. But from an HR standpoint, could we have a situation? Could we have a problem? Are we in a predicament here in regards to protected class, and could it look like retaliation? The next one here. Employee plays at work and pokes fun at other coworkers. Now someone files for harassment. We tend to, again, we have the 2-year mandatory anti-harassment or harassment prevention, and we always try to make sure that managers are aware, department heads are aware, but how do they know what's innocent banter and really what could be considered harassment. We take a look. We, have been filed a lawsuit. The employee has never been written up. There's nothing in there. There's no counseling, no coaching. Um, and after interviewing the manager, they didn't realize or didn't document or didn't approach it just because they just didn't think it was that big of a deal. And now we have a harassment claim. A couple of more. We have a severe injury on the job that resulted in a Cal OSHA audit. So now that we have Cal OSHA coming in, they're going to be taking pictures, talking to our employees, looking at all of our documents, requesting a document sheet, and we have to provide them information within 48 hours. So now that OSHA is on our premises and they need to take a look at everything, could this result in large fines for our company? Also, too, we have an injury on the job. We need to take care of that. Is this person going to be on a protected leave? Are they going to be a workers' comp? Absolutely. And after interviewing the manager and finding out what happened after the accident, the manager admits they've seen this individual intoxicated in the past. We find out that this usually happens once a week. This obviously was somebody that was not following the company policy, but also too, we did not do our job in regards to making sure that they went and got tested. Now it resulted in a severe injury. Luckily, it didn't result in someone else being injured. However, did we as a company know that we had somebody who was intoxicated on multiple times that violated our policy and we did nothing about it? Who is OSHA going to be blaming for this severe accident? Next one, termination of employment and then a claim for discrimination. Are we still seeing claims for discrimination? We are. Most people come back to us and say, well, we're at an at-will state. Well, California, we're basically, eroded at will. However, you can, we are an at-will state. However, do you have documentation to show that it was not based on someone's race, color, creed, gender, anything of that sort, or their protected leave that they recently went on, or any complaints that they recently waged against their department manager? So it's more complicated than ever. When we see a claim for discrimination, again, going in and taking a look at the employment file, did the manager document or state the reason for termination? Terminating people is very emotional. It's very scary. There is high risk as well too. When you decide to terminate employees, it needs to be done carefully. You need to look at, we do have something called the pre-termination checklist. It's really not for HR, it's more for managers, just as a guide and a reference to say, if we move forward with this termination, have we done everything possible? Have we followed our policy and procedure? So again, a lot of times when we see discrimination and we have to then go and file a claim with our EPLI carrier, we're always asked, was there any documentation to show that it was for tardiness, for insubordination, for bad attitude, for not doing the job on time, not wanting to come to work? Is it attendance? So make sure you have proper documentation as well. The big one that we are still seeing right now, if I could give a pearl of wisdom to everybody that's out there, I know that we have HR folks that are on the line, but we have a lot of managers as well. But the biggest, I guess, 100-pound gorilla, I guess they're over 100, but the biggest liability that I see right now for employers is meal and rest periods. It's just too easy. Along with the changes in, paid sick, with the minimum age changes, it's virtually impossible for employers to actually get it right. It really is very, very, very difficult. So you have an employee that complains that they never receive their rest and meal periods after a termination of employment. Who are they going to? Who are they talking to? When we look back and we're filing an EPLI claim, hopefully with your carrier, if they do cover wage and hour, we're seeing, unfortunately, that Yes, this employee did not take their full meal period of the 30 minutes, and there's no documentation of reprimanding this person. There's no documentation of verifying that we offered it. We made it available. So unfortunately, it's a he said, she said situation. Again, meal and rest periods are still the biggest liability out there, and it's still a big nightmare for all employers in California. Do we see it going away? Absolutely not. It's the low-hanging fruit, and it just takes one person to say, I never got it, and it starts a chain of other employees talking about it and filing claims as well too. So again, with all of these different scenarios, what are we seeing? Well, by the time it comes to HR, it's a full-blown problem. But could these things have been dealt with on a managerial level? Could we have given our managers the tools to be productive? Could we have given our managers the tools to know how to coach, counsel, and actually how to fill out the documentation forms? So that's really the goal of this is, could these things have been prevented? Maybe, but they would have been dealt with a lot faster, cleaner, and would have cost a lot less if we did have managers helping us as a first line defense. So recently, this gentleman here, this is not a picture of Ty, this is a picture of Don Finn, and a lot of you may know him from HR That Works, and then he sold it to Think HR, which is one of the HR resources that we use. And we are also planning on having a lawsuit-free seminar with Don as well too in the future, so take a look for that in 2017. He recently did a blog on the wisdom of preventing claims, and he's a big proponent of, can a company be lawsuit free? He goes, yeah. However, there needs to be a lot of prevention that goes into it. And we're going to go over his wisdom of preventing claims, lawsuits, litigation, audits. But I'm also going to touch upon, for managers and your leaders, what can they do to help the organization as well too. So in preventing claims, follow the law. It's a must, and ignorance is not an excuse. So audit your practices at least yearly. Have somebody come in, take a look at how you process your time cards or your regular rate of pay. Make sure you have all the OSHA documents in place. Make sure you have all the new hire documents. Kind of stop, make sure you have all the latest and greatest, and update as necessary. But I do say this, if anything, you should stop and make sure you at least audit your payroll practices, because again, that is really the biggest liability that's out there for managers. Next, get EPLI insurance. All of you should have EPLI insurance. Hopefully you guys have an EPLI insurance with wage and hour coverage. If you don't get it, I know that in California it's very scarce. A lot of carriers have left California because there are just too many claims. Also too, with EPLI, if you use it, are your rates going to go up? Well, yes, it's kind of like health insurance and workers' comp. If you file claims, then the policy may be canceled or go up in cost. One also thing too is know the legal team. Understand the legal team. If you have an attorney or a firm that you like working with, assign them as your counsel. I have too many clients that have a policy, and then when they do file a claim, very upset with their legal counsel. But again, it's something that was assigned to them and they weren't part of that process. So everybody needs EPLI. The bigger you are, the more risk and exposure you have. Not everything will be covered in EPLI, but it is one of those necessary policies that most employers do need now. Don't hire a claim, and please don't hire a victim. We do have a hiring checklist, and background checks are a must. Whenever we are approached in regards to looking at a complicated HR situation, our question is always, one, how long have they been here? And two, who hired them? And let's learn from that. We always tell people, Think of your department, think of your company as your home. Would you just open up the door and let everybody in? Absolutely not. And do the same thing with your department. I know a lot of managers just want a body. They just want someone who has a heartbeat, who's breathing, and they go, you know what, they don't look drunk, they don't look too crazy, I'm just going to have them start tomorrow. Well, what happens then is that we'll see issues come up right after. So we'll dive into this a little bit deeper, but again, preventing claims. Don't hire a claim. Somebody who is going to create unnecessary HR drama for you all. Don't ignore, bury, or deny problems. Deal with problems right now. We're going to dive in a little bit deeper with that. And I have kind of a funny cartoon, maybe kind of not PC, but really, I tell managers, please be honest. If you are not honest, it will only get worse. So we'll dive in a little bit deeper on that because things that we ignore will then implode later on. Again, continuing on with preventing claims, don't make things worse than they already are. Seek compromise and resolution, even if you think you're right. I have a lot of managers that base things on principle. And I go, that is fantastic and wonderful. But let us take a look at the big picture. Do we counsel and coach this person fairly for the last 10 years? If we have not, then we need to look for a compromise and also a resolution, something that is fair, and we'll go into that as well. Fight litigation lawyers, they're out there. It's unfortunate that someone had mentioned that they saw some attorneys waiting at some local workers' comp clinics recently over at the local EDD offices, and you know, if you do get either a confidential, you know, settlement agreement, or you are sued from a bad employee that you terminated, you know, you really do need a rock star team. You need an attorney that has experience. We have some recommended attorneys that we love that are basically the best in California, and you really need a game plan. You know, you need to fight it. You need to make a stance, but also to have a really good team to defend you and prevent claims as well too. Bring joy, passion, and fun to the workplace. You know, whenever Ty and I see a bunch of fraudulent workers' comp claims, or we see a bunch of wage and hour claims, or we just see high turnover, the question we always ask to the owners or HR is, what's going on? Are people happy? Are they having fun? Or are people just kind of the walking dead here? Do you have a rogue manager that just is not very nice to work with, and people feel as if they have nowhere to go but to sue you? Companies that we deal with that are profitable have strong retention and enjoy coming to work. We don't necessarily see a lot of issues that come up from a claim standpoint. So again, if I've done a good job of hiring, I have good people that want to work there, they're part of our company culture, they know what to do, we're honest with them when they make a mistake. Are we going to have fun together? Is it going to be more of an enjoyable work experience versus hiring a victim, someone who doesn't like people, doesn't like the job? Oh, they never like to come to work. Is there going to be a contentious workplace? Absolutely. That's when we see a lot of activity as it relates to claims. So make sure you're looking at that. And last but not least, what I always tell HR is, you know, HR departments, either a solo department or a department of few, by the time things come to HR, they're full-blown problems. They're issues that have now hit the fan, and they're now getting involved. So I'm a big proponent of educating managers. Most managers have just put in their years. You've done a good job, you're loyal to the company, so therefore we're going to promote you as a manager, but we've never given them the proper tools for success. and then we complain that they haven't done the proper documentation, but really in the end, we really have not provided them with the tools. And I really think that is the biggest thing is, yes, we have an employee manual, but no one reads it. Yes, we have a lot of forms, but no one fills it out. So let's bridge that gap in regards to preventing claims. So going into some of the key points that Don Finnan was talking about is don't hire a claim. Okay, the cost of not hiring the right person and keeping them too long is just too costly. The stress, the agony. Also, who don't hire a victim. Some of the best interview questions are, tell me a time when you screwed up. If someone says they've never screwed up, well, that's interesting. Also, too, are they complaining about their last employer and how this was unfair and this was unfair? Do extensive background checks. And again, the process is, congratulations, you have the job. Now, go peanut cup. We have to do a bunch of background checks, and this is contingent upon all this information coming back correctly. Background checks also, too, we would say, if it's a physical job, are they able to touch their toes? Are they required to lift 90 pounds 90% of the day? Well, do a physical check as well, too. And last but not least, take your time. I'm always surprised when I do an interview workshop with managers. And I always ask them, okay, you have the job description in front of you. I want you to give me your 2 top questions you're going to ask me. And 100% of the time, it will be based on nothing related to the job. It'll be, tell me about yourself. What are your strengths and weaknesses? How did you hear about us? Which those are great openers, but I really want to focus in on, can you do the job? Interviewing is a fine art and it is a skill. And I tell people, if you're not a very good hiring manager, make sure you hire with 2 people or you get the blessing with HR. Also, too, for those that are managers, have HR do the last look. Have HR look through the applications or the resumes. They're going to see things that maybe you don't catch. And it's very important to ask some questions in regards to, I see here there's a little gap here, or I see that you have a totally different industry and work experience. They're going to hit on maybe some red flags that you may not pick up on. And when you're interviewing people, this is really their opportunity to shine. But more and more, I'm telling people, take your time. Don't go with your gut feeling. Really make an educated decision and have the job description as really kind of the platform to say, I feel comfortable that this individual can and will do this job, and hopefully they pass the background checks. But don't hire claim, take your time. If you do, and we have the bad apple here, if you realize you have hired somebody that you should not have hired, 1, they can't do the job. 2, they're already calling out, or their car, it's their pet, it's their this, or that. You're going, I don't know if this is the right fit. Maybe they don't get along with anybody in the department. Maybe they don't like your managerial style. If you do not address it now, it will only get worse. So if you have, again, hired the proverbial bad apple, please do something about it sooner than later. Also, too, if you have the 60-day check-in, the 90-day check-in, get the job description out and make sure, okay, knowing what I know about this person, good, bad, and ugly, can they do this job? Are they the right person for this job? Because if you keep them, then what you're telling the organization and HR is that, you know what, they may only do 50% of this job, but I'm going to work with them. I'm going to help them get to be at 100%, but I know that who I have right now does not fit the job description, but I'm willing to work with them. But this here, when I hear about discrimination claims, when I hear about wage and hour claims, when I hear about intoxication, a lot of unnecessary drama, litigation, the cost of hiring attorneys, going to court, depositions. A lot of it could have been avoided if we did a really good job of hiring and making sure we didn't hire a claim. Okay? Don't ignore, bury, or deny problems. So there's my little cartoon. I won't repeat it, but deal with problems right now. What we tend to see is, let's say we see somebody that goes out on a workers' comp claim, and we will get information, we'll talk to the adjuster, and we'll talk to the manager, and we'll talk to HR. And 50% of the time we will hear, I don't want them back, they're a horrible employee. My question to them is, well, why did you keep them for such a long time? And do you have anything to substantiate what you're talking about? And if they were really that bad all these years, why did we keep them? So in regards to dealing with problems right now, I think that is critical. The biggest thing here is the myth of discipline. I can't tell you how many people, managers, supervisors, and leads dread confrontation, absolutely dread it. And I always tell them that the word discipline comes from the word disciple, which means to teach, okay? And for all of us that have children, we love our children and we discipline our children. Is it to hurt them? No. Is it to make them better? Is it to teach them to make them better and to learn? Absolutely. So then why wouldn't we practice these same principles with our employees? Unfortunately, if we do not discipline, if we're not honest, then you will be frustrated. You will get to the point where it may be considered harassment because unfortunately the problems get bigger. They never go away. So deal with problems as soon as possible. We need to take out the fear of discipline. I always tell people, hey, call it coaching. So that way it doesn't feel as if you're hurting people. Are you coaching people? Because are all of your employees at 100%? If they're not, then we need to have constant coaching with them. And with that comes with documentation. Honest and fair feedback. So if I'm going to be flunking out of a math class, I'm not going to be passing a certain grade, well, my teacher gives me my grade, and it shouldn't be a surprise. And so more than anything, your employees, again, the one big thing that I see is a lot of time managers only talk to their employees when it's bad feedback, but we need to give constant, honest feedback continually. Going back to the analogy of your children or your spouse. Now, how often do you discipline? Is it once every quarter? Is it once a year? Are you giving feedback to your spouse once a year at your anniversary? Or is there constant feedback and being honest with your children, your spouse, your loved ones? Well, let's do the same thing with our employees. Documentation, documentation, documentation. I can't tell you how many people I've said, do your folks know where to get the forms? Have your folks ever filled out the form? And do they know how to fill it out properly? Because if this were to come up in a case or a claim, would you feel comfortable having this document be blown up to the size of a wall in the courtroom? Documentation is key, but please have your managers give them the tools so they understand how to document, what to say, and always HR, make sure you have that pass through so you take a look at it. Make sure there's no emotions in it, okay? The last bullet point here, if you ignore them, they will only get worse. So what we tend to see right now is, unfortunately, with some employers, they have that long-term employee, and they're kind of at a crossroads. What to do, what to say. And Sometimes I have managers tell me, well, I'm just going to wait for them to retire. And unfortunately, some of these folks are like 42 years old. So we've got a long road. But if there are issues, problems, whether it be performance, attitude, job knowledge, um, if they're not doing their job and you don't address it and correct it, it will only get worse with time. And your level of frustration will also increase as well. And what we're seeing from our end is at one point people blow up and they say, you know what, I'm done with this person. But we go to our pre-termination checklist, we look through the little checkpoints and say, we don't have enough here. We can't do this yet. But if we were to have addressed it on time, with discipline, with fair, honest feedback and documentation, we could have pulled the trigger to do something, but at this point, we have to stop, plan, and kind of start from scratch. So again, the biggest thing here is we have to get your managers and supervisors to feel comfortable to discipline and coach employees. Seek compromise and resolution. With managers and supervisors, when we get involved and we're working with HR and we're working with the manager, the biggest thing I tell them is take out the emotion. Also, too, I hear this a lot, based on principle, based on principle. And I go, oh, okay, all right, I understand your side, but then I'm going to give it to you from what it would look like from an employee side. But when we're looking for, see, compromise and resolution, it's not off with their head, but more of a, let's follow our policy and let's be consistent, okay? If we have not followed our policy within our organization, are we going to have problems? Well, yes, of course, because you've created then your own internal policy, and what you do for one, you do for all. So be very careful. So if we say, I'm going to protect your job for the next 3 years, and then Stacy goes out and says, well, I want the same thing, could we have been putting our policy in jeopardy because we're not being consistent? Going back to compromise and resolution, plan carefully. Again, if we're taking out the emotion, we're going to follow our policy, we're going to plan carefully, and we really do need to step back and say, are we being fair and consistent? So from an HR standpoint, I tell my managers this. Have we given them multiple opportunities to get better? Have we been clear, concise, with documentation, and we've really level set the playing field? We've given them multiple opportunities, but really at the end of the day, they haven't come forward to give us what we need. I think that's really a carefully planned either exit strategy, outplacement, severance agreement, whatever it may be. But we always want to kind of take out the emotion, look at the big picture, and see what we can do without having any unnecessary drama, stress of any claims. Some communication tools that I think are great for managers and also for HR is the employee manual. I always refer back to it. I know it's that big ugly thing that you always need to update, but it usually sits on somebody's desk and never gets approved. But when you talk about the law, make sure you're complying with the law. There ifs, don't, if, ands, or buts, make sure your employee manual is up to snuff and you distribute it annually. Job descriptions, please make sure you have those. We just recently did a wage and hour event with Paul Fleck over at AALRR. Job description, what is the main responsibilities of the job, essential job functions, and what are the requirements of the job? Keep it plain, keep it vanilla, be very succinct, have it to be one page. From the job description, that's going to help us hire, train, do evaluations, performance reviews. Also do if somebody gets hurt, sick, or ill, we use the job description. They have a workers' comp claim, they have a disability, they get pregnant, or at the end for terminations, we're always referencing the job description and also qualifying people and looking at are they exempt or non-exempt. Training is key. one of the things that we're working with are PEOs. We're partnering up with some PEOs. So those of you that are not familiar with it, they're leasing companies. You lease back your employees. And they do, or they say that they take off some of the liability off of your plate. But one of the things that they do require in getting a brand new client is having required compliance training for each and every manager and supervisor and lead. Otherwise, you are not a client. And the reason why they want to do that, it's really more of a employee manual training. And they want to make sure that if they're going to be co-employers with you, that they've done their job of making sure they've communicated expectations to your managers. So I always tell people, why wouldn't you do the same thing? Every year, do a coaching, managing training, much like what we do with CPR. We always have to get updated, right? So make sure that you're training your people as well. HR support. HR, I want to tell you that if you could get out of the office and touch and see the departments, sometimes we wait for issues to come to us, but half the time if you're out and about talking to the department heads, you're going to be spotting issues before they become full-blown fires. So one, as managers, supervisors, and leads, yes, go to HR for support. If you're having a problem with insubordination or someone not doing their job or not coming to work on time or they're not getting their meal periods, HR is there to help you, and vice versa. HR, make sure you're getting out of the office and touching the different departments and just getting kind of a check-in with them as well. Daily interaction goals, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Behavioral rewards and appreciation, we've seen this as a big tool right now for retention, is really not disciplining all the time, but also saying, hey, you're doing a great job. I like that behavior, and actually rewarding people on that behavior. So one, that it spreads and it's repeated as well too. Consistency is key. If anything, if you do something wrong but you're consistent, at least you're not discriminating. But one of the things we always want to try to convey with everyone is consistency is key. And when in doubt, talk to HR. And we really wanted to take our managers from what they do the day in and day out of managing, making sure people to come work on time, they're not drunk, they're doing their job, and making them into leaders. And we're going to go over what we see as the biggest change right now in HR as it relates to managers into leaders. Manager check-in. I've been seeing a lot of employers, whether it be retention issues, morale, workers' comp claims. We work with a company called Performances Now, and they're a great company, and what they do is they train managers to do a check-in. Unfortunately, again, we talked about managers are usually so busy doing multiple jobs, putting out fires, that they don't really have an opportunity to talk to their employees. And when they do talk to their employees, it's more of, well, you came to work late, you have a problem here, issue here, and it's always on a kind of a negative topic. So a manager check-in, and this is one where I really need to work on it too. I tend to come in, do my work, put on my blinders, and get going. But I have to always remember I have a team of individuals. So some common things you can say is, how's it going? What's happening? Any issues or problems? I mean, when's the last time you've had somebody ask that? How can we improve? Hey, gosh, we had this late shipment, we had this breakage, we had this. How can we improve? What do you think? And really try and listen. You have any new ideas? Managers that have new ideas, owners love that. Are they always going to stick? No, but that means you're thinking. So keep that in mind. If somebody has been sick or hurt or ill, how are you feeling? How's your back feel? And last but not least, it's free, and all you have to do is say thank you. While yes, a lot of employees are at your organization for the pay, but appreciation is always a big key. When we do have employers that are having issues or maybe unionized, after all is said and done and they are not unionized and they do a survey, one of the biggest things that comes out of the survey from the employee base is the level of appreciation and managerial skills. And when we see that, that's when we talk about just do a manager check-in. It's not to say you're going to save the world, but it's just be connected with your people. And also, too, if there are problems and if there are issues, I already have an open dialogue with you. Talking to you openly about what happened is not going to be a shock to the system because we have a good rapport. We have open communication. And I will be fair and consistent to say thank you when you do a good job, but I will also be fair and honest and consistent when you haven't met the mark as well, too. Coaching, training, and counseling. Again, this is really for your managers and understanding your policy, which are the rules of the game. Try and be consistent. Practice coaching sessions. Again, a lot of people are very worried and scared about discipline. So practice coaching sessions. How would it be? When would it be done? Where would it be? Documentation. Show your managers and supervisors how to fill out forms, how to do them well, and then how to have the meetings as well too. Once you do your documentation, you need to have that meeting. You need to follow up. And inspiration, when somebody does a good job, or they've changed their behavior, or they have improved, tell them thank you. You know, share it with others. So again, that they feel rewarded for doing something differently, and also it really helped in regards to your coaching as well too. Again, another poster, I think one of the folks that's on the line here actually has this up, and it's the poster of an average employee versus a great employee. So, you know, when we talk about a victim or we talk about a claim, you know, this is an average employee. It's not a bad employee. But who do you have within your workforce? Do they just come in? They don't like change. They fly by the seat of their pants. It's always everybody else except for them. They're motivated out of fear, so they're the ones that you have to yell at. Maybe poor health habits. They never contribute new ideas. They're poor to their teammates. They're dragged to be around, and they love wasting time. So do we have these employees? Can we train these employees? Can we work on their attitude? Very difficult. Very difficult. But if we have too many of these outweighing your great employees, then we're going to have issues. And your great employees like to learn. They like doing their work. They like change. They're not going to be bucking the system and saying, oh, I don't like this new software. I don't like doing it this way. Well, if it makes us better, faster, cheaper, why wouldn't you? They also plan their lives. They're also good with habits as well. They hate wasting time. They're a team leader. And again, going back to the, are we having fun at work? Do we have too many of these folks dragging down these folks? Because these employees here, I consider your rock stars. Make sure you do not have too many of these employees dragging down these employees. People that blame and justify or a victim, are they ever going to get better? Are they ever going to be a team player? Are they going to be open to criticism? Usually not. And what I tell people is if we have too many bad employees or below average employees, well, we are just going to be setting ourselves up for a claim. Okay? So this is a poster that I can give to you all as well too. Leaders into managers, or managers into leaders. So what I tend to see is old school versus new school managers. Right now, if you do have turnover, a lot of times it's not based on the pay, it's based on the manager. And if I see a trail of fraudulent workers' comp claims or litigation, I will always ask, who is the manager? who is in that department. And these are some of the characteristics of that manager where I do see a lot of litigation, claims, issues, a lot of stress, and a lot of liability for employers. So it's very, very, very important from an HR standpoint is to identify, do you have a lot of managers that fit in this box? If you do, put them in the closet and give them duct tape over their mouth, because they will be harassing people. They will be yelling and screaming. They will not coach and counsel. They will not be consistent. They're going to be very rash with their decisions. They're going to fly by the seat of their pants, and huge risk for an organization. So this is, and the tag word right now in HR is there's IQ and EQ, also known as emotional intelligence. And really kind of looking at kind of the John Wooden style of coaching is, are we the Bobby Knight of screaming, yelling, throwing chairs? Well, what type of employees are you going to get versus helpful, consistent, honest, fun, planner? These are the type of characteristics that we really need to bring out of all of your managers, supervisors, and or leads, is to make sure we're giving them these tools to not only recruit the best employees, but to train your employees and to make it a really dynamic department for the company as a whole. So again, this is kind of old school, this is new school, and if you do have some managers, and what I've seen is over time that these folks tend to come over here. Why? One, they mature. Two is their hands have been slapped. And three, they realize, how do I want to be treated as an employee? Well, probably not using these responses. It's probably going to be these responses here. How would I want to be treated as an employee, and how do I treat people as a leader? So I always like to give this as kind of a cheat sheet for my managers and saying, here's what we're looking for and here's what we're not looking for as leaders within our company. So some takeaway tips is update your policies and procedures. I think that's a no-brainer. But make sure your people know and understand. How do you know that they have read your policy? We always get the signature, and I'm always surprised that the only section people look at is the sick and vacation policy, and that's about it. So you really do need to test your managers on your policy. If they're not consistent with your policy, then you're going to have problems. You will have discrimination. You will have it where they have not followed your progressive discipline policy because they've never read it. They don't understand the work rules. They don't understand the attendance policy. So it's one thing to get a manager to sign off that they have it, but really make sure they read it, because they are your captains out there, making sure that they understand the rules of the game. But if they don't know the rules of the game, that's where we get in trouble. Train your managers. You know, they have a lot on their plate, and unfortunately, unless they've been with a Fortune 500 company, we don't see them getting trained on hiring, interviewing, discipline, coaching, and terminations. These are very, very relevant topics that really help them day in and day out dealing with their employees. So make sure you give them the tools to be successful. Documentation. So at the end of the day, if you do have a claim, whether it be workers' comp, harassment, failure to have meal rest periods, OSHA unsafe workplace, what is your proof? Do you have proof that there was a training? Do you have proof that there was a write-up? Do you have proof or pictures to say it wasn't the machines, it was the person? Do you have proper documentation that, one, backs up your concerns issues, and proof of communication. Very, very, very important. And again, making sure that that's part of your training program for your managers. And last but not least here is let us know how we can help. Yes, we provide renewals. We give you coverages that hopefully you don't have to use. But we tend to work with clients throughout the entire year to really make sure that you are in compliance. We keep you safe, your managers and your company safe. And obviously, if we help with that, then it's going to help with your bottom line as well. So let us know how we can help you. Have you done a full-blown HR audit? Make sure you have that. Update your policies and procedures. We do have a new hire checklist, and it is a slow process of checking the box to make sure that you have the right person and you're doing your due diligence. If you need help and assistance training your managers, let us know. We also have a payroll rest period disclaimer. That is a hot ticket right now that we got from Paul Fleck, so make sure to ask us for that if you need it. We have a compliance survey. The compliance survey asks a few questions. Do you feel harassed? Do you feel discriminated? Do you feel it's a fair workplace? And have you had an industrial injury? If people say no, 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 you put that in the employee file. If you do have a case that comes up, 4 years from now and someone says they've been harassed, you have documentation, not from the employee manual, but also from a compliance survey to reference to say you had every opportunity and we did a check-in with you and you said there was no harassment. So were you lying then or are you lying now? We also have, it's not termination checklist, I call it a pre-termination checklist. It's a carefully guided step-by-step overview of making sure you have the proper things in place if you are going to be making a decision like a termination. Have a rock star team of attorneys. So we've been blessed to have a rock star team of attorneys. Not only do we have the Don Dresler team that has been wonderful. We have the Don Finn team that's been wonderful. We have Paul Fleck that is amazing. And we recently are now partnering with Richard Simmons, the Wage and Hour Guru as well too. So if you need an introduction to any of our rockstar attorneys from a compliance standpoint or from a, oh no, this has been filed, I need somebody to help, somebody that's good to fight the good fight, let us know. We'll definitely give you those names. And also too, lean on us as your chief risk officer. My job is to make sure that you're in compliance throughout the entire year. Most companies can't afford one, so again, we will be giving you renewals, we'll be doing open enrollment and the basic things, but are we keeping you in compliance the entire year? That's probably the most important part of all this. So let us know how we can help you as well. We have a takeaway quote from a webinar I just went to. It matters what leaders do and don't do. The culture of an organization is shaped by the worst behavior the leader is willing to tolerate. So the person, the issue, the problem that is within your department, is that your big coffee stain on your beautiful brand new white tablecloth? Will it go away? Or is this really what you're going to be dealing with within your department if not taken care of quickly with documentation, consistency, and also with proper communication? So again, giving you the tools to be successful as a manager, supervisor, and lead. Ty is actually going to be having a webinar on December 9th at 9 a.m. So he's going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, how, excuse me, how now X-mods are going to be calculated are changing in January 2017. So right now we're just kind of doing our research on kind of the different split points and the different factors that go into it. But long story short, here's the kind of the summary of it. The big claims aren't going to hit you as much, but frequency of claims is going to impact you more. So it's even that much more how would you say, important to really focus on safety in the workplace, overall organizational culture, and do your managers, as part of their main job description, do they even know that keeping their employees safe in their department should be their number one job description, right? And is that on the front of their mind when entering the workplace? So that's one things we're really going to focus on December 9th is we're going to also go into how to calculate your new XMODs coming up in 2017. Okay.
So thank you all very much for attending. And again, we do more, but at the end of the day, what do you deserve from a broker? Do you need more? And what do you deserve for those commission dollars that you're paying for? So let us know how we can help you. Let us know how we can help your managers and supervisors and leads be your first line of defense. Let us know how we can come out and train, and also make sure that you're in compliance. So if any of these items were of interest, we'll follow back up with you. But thank you very much for attending. We hope to see you at the next webinar talking about all the changes for 2017 for workers' comp. And we hope you stay safe, healthy, and productive. Thank you for attending.